ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती रघुनाथ स्वामी नामने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं हरि ओम। हरे कृष्ण and Jai Shri Ram. So we had hope you all had a uh, wonderful festivity in celebration uh, of the most glorious events of recent times, that of the installation of Lord Sri Ramchandra in Ayodhya. Very, very wonderful, not only in terms of the magnitude of the celebration, but also in terms of how uh, it positively engulfed the entire nation and beyond. The kind of overwhelming sentiment, the happiness, the gratitude, and the tears. Many, many devotees, dignitaries, so overwhelmed with the long saga of over 500 years coming to its rightful conclusion, ushering in a new era for not just the people of the land of Bharat, but for the whole planet. So, a lot of interesting, beautiful transformations should expect the coming years, which will create auspiciousness for all on this planet. And I'm sure all these things will manifest very wonderfully in due course. So, having said that, we want to continue with our discussions. Uh, this Saturday, our discussion goes back to Srimad Bhagavad. In our last class, we discussed chapter 8 of the sixth canto, which is the Narayana Kavacha. We discussed that very wonderful prayer, which was Kavacha, to be more specific. It's a Kavacha prayer. It's a prayer of the type of Kavacha, which Vishwarupa taught to Indra so that he can regain his lost kingdom, regain his lost power, regain his lost position. As we may recollect briefly, that Indra, because of his offense towards Brihaspati, his neglect towards his spiritual master, because of being puffed up by his extraordinary opulence and position, for a few moments, bewildered by false pride, he was indifferent to the presence of his spiritual master Brihaspati, and he was cursed indirectly. Actually, Brihaspati did not directly curse him, but by that offense of Brihaspati walking away and disappearing, he realized that he had committed a big offense, and being weak based because of the offense towards his guru, he and the devatas became weak, and the demons who were emboldened and strengthened by their devout service to Shukracharya, they attacked and took over the kingdom of. We have discussed this earlier. Indra and the others, they go to Brahma. Brahmaji guides them that the only way out is you have to take help of Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa, who has a mixed lineage. His father, Twasta, who has a lineage from the Devas on one side, and his mother was a lineage from the side of the Danavas. So even though he's mixed in that sense, but nonetheless, he's your best option right now. So it's not just that only, we on earth always have these difficult choices to make. Sometimes even the devatas in heaven, if you read through all the Puranas and various scriptures, you'll see the devatas also go through very tough times, very difficult situations. They also have to compromise. They also go through misery. They are also driven out of their kingdoms, sometimes for long periods. So generally within the Tribhuvana, Bhuvasvaha, there is no peace, no matter how opulent a person may be. So finally Vishwarupa agrees, and Vishwarupa teaches Narayan Kavacha, which he had learned from Twasta, his father. The history of Narayan Kavach we will come to a little bit later. Within this chapter itself, that is briefly mentioned, of how and from where Narayan Kavacha was received. So something very interesting happened. So Vishwarupa had taught Indra, and and Vishwarupa continued to perform the seva of the Purohit of the Devatas headed by Indra. So Purohit performs yajnas, performs sacrifices, guides the family. So regularly Indra would engage Vishwarupa, and Vishwarupa would be performing yajnas on behalf of the Devatas. So as mentioned in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Devatas get power through performance of yajna. That is the system that the Supreme Lord has created. And even on earth, when the followers of Varnashram Dharma perform the respective yajnas according to their duties, then the Devatas become nourished and opulent, and in return, they bless the residents of this world with the necessities of life. So then we can get abundance here. Paraspara bhavayantam. We pay tax to them, and they, being the universal government, give us the facilities through nature so that we can have our needs satisfied. So that is the divine arrangement. So Vishwarupa was also performing yajna for Indra to make Indra and the Devatas powerful. It said Vishwarupa had 3 heads. Brahma has 4. Vishwarupa has 3 heads. Very interesting. It is said, as Shukadev Goswami said, I have heard that out of his 3 heads, 1 head he used to use to drink Soma Rasa. Soma Rasa is the rasa which the Devatas drink. 1 head he used to use to drink wine, and the 3rd head he used to use for eating. That's not mentioned why that particular combination, but I'm assuming that Somaras because he's connected to the Devatas, and wine because he's connected to the Danavas. And one to eat. Of course, why he had dedicated heads, I do not know. But nonetheless, so Shukadev Goswami also tells me, I have heard like this, I'm just telling to you. Prabhupada makes an interesting comment. We have to accept some of these things based on how it is revealed. We do not know the nature of life and the situation on higher planets. But Shastras reveal, we have to accept. We do not have any idea. We are like a frog in the well. We cannot extrapolate our life and our living conditions and constraints to the different worlds which work under different uh, laws of nature. Anyway, so Vishwarupa was performing sacrifice. Now, Vishwarupa had a very peculiar characteristic, and we discussed this earlier as well. Because he was related on the side of the Devatas as well as the Danavas, he had affection for both. Now, the problem is in his job as Purohit of the Devatas, he had a conflict of interest. And Indra had got him when he became Purohit to sign on a no conflict of interest agreement, which means you will be dedicated to us only. You don't side with the demons. You are exclusively employed by us. As long as you are our Purohit, no siding with the. But because he had a natural affection for the Danavas, as he would be performing the yajnas, he would be offering to the fire. Idam Indraya, Idam Agnaye. I am offering this to Indra, I am offering this to Agni. So he would offer. And just when Indra would be looking in the other direction, quietly he would offer an oblation into the fire, the Danavas. And he would chant the mantra very softly so that nobody would hear. So he was making the Devatas also powerful, and parallelly he was also making the demons powerful. So this was going on for some time. And finally, Indra realized that he's being tricked. This person is doing gadbad. He's taking salary from us as Purohit, using our ingredients, our pay. But half time he's working for us, half time he's working for our enemies. He's double agent. So Indra became very, and when Indra becomes very upset, So that is the nature of anger. Anger which is created by frustration of attachment causes one to lose one's intelligence. Indra immediately, as soon as he realized, in great anger, he cut off all the 3 heads of Vishwarupa. Chopped off all 3 heads. Vishwarupa wasn't an ordinary personality. The Bhagavatam describes as soon as his 3 heads were chopped off, from the head which he was drinking somaras, it transformed into a kapinjala bird. The head from which he was drinking wine, it transformed into the kalavinka bird. Kalavinka is sparrow. Kapinjala is a francolin partridge. It's a type of partridge. And the head which was used for eating food transformed into the tittiri bird. The tittiri bird is a common partridge. Now, why that happened, I don't know. It's not mentioned here. So that technology I'm not aware of. But apparently it happened like this. So wonderful things happen on the higher planets because their body isn't like this, like our gross body. So very wonderful things are possible in those higher realms. And he was a great tapasvi. He was a Brahmana. Now, what happened that even though Vishwarupa had made a mistake, it was not right for Indra to kill him because Vishwarupa was a Brahmana. A Brahmana cannot be killed. So Indra got the sin of killing a Brahman. Now the Bhagavatam mentions, Dev Goswami shares this, that Indra was at that time powerful enough to neutralize the reactions of killing the Brahmana. But because he felt repentant for his act, he decided to accept those reactions on himself with folded hands. He said, no, I deserve to suffer. Let me suffer. It is said for 1 year, he continued to suffer the reactions of his activities. It's not described how exactly he suffered, but it is said then because he wanted to purify himself from that sin so that he could continue his service as Indra, it is said he distributed his sins amongst quarter, the remaining sins after this 1 year of atonement, amongst four parties: the earth, water, trees, and women. Very interesting. So he transferred sin. So sin can be transferred. At least Indra can do that. So let us not get so excited that we say, oh, good, let me hand over my sins to someone. The thing is, there is nothing that comes free. So when Indra distributed his sins to these four parties, it is said in return he had to give something. So there was a give and take. I give you this, you do this. Just like at our home, right? We are supposed to do the cleaning in our home, but we engage a maid to do the cleaning. And in return, we give them remuneration. So there is an exchange of value. So he struck a deal. Indra struck a deal with four parties. So it is said, 1/4 he distributed to the earth. It is said that because of accepting 1/4 of the reactions, the earth started having deserts on some parts of its surface because of those sins. So deserts came about because of that. And the blessing that Indra gave in return, that if there are any ditches which are created on earth, they would automatically get filled. So that was a return blessing. The blessing, the trees took sins, and because of the sins of killing a Brahmana, the trees started oozing sap, poisonous sap. And that's why it is said that one should not drink the sap of trees because that represents the sins of Indra. And in return, Indra gave a blessing to the trees that if your twigs are cut, they will grow back. It is said women accepted the blessing that they can continue to enjoy lusty desires. And in return, they were given the curse that once every month they will have to go through a menstrual cycle. So that also came from the curse from sharing the sinful reactions of women. And for water, by accepting the sins, the water becomes foamy and bubbly. And it is said bubbly and foamy water is considered contaminated and should not be accepted by anyone. And return, the benediction that water got was when the water mixes with anything else, it increases the volume of that substance. So anyway, so this is the background. So it was not just that he just gave and people took. So made a deal. Said, instead of me suffering, are you willing to suffer? You take my suffering. In return, I give you blessing. So there was a deal struck. Anyway, so Indra became purified from the reaction after that, after 1 year and after he distributed that. But Vishwarupa's father was a great sage, Twasta. He was very, very angry. How dare Indra kill my son Vishwarupa? He was his Purohit. He shouldn't have done this. So Twasta, who was a great sage, started performing a yajna. For what? To create a very powerful being who will kill Indra. So in those days, when Brahmanas would get very upset and they wanted to destroy anybody, usually they will not take a sword and shield and go and attack. They will either instruct another Kshatriya or through their powers, through mantra they'll destroy, or they'll create somebody through their powers who will be instructed to destroy. So these kind of stories you will see very often in the scriptures. So Twasta performed a very great yajna. And he was offering oblations to the fire. And from the sacrificial fire, as he was chanting mantras to create a being who's an enemy of Indra, a huge, fearful, terrible personality emerged from the sacrificial fire. So the description is given. It was very huge. He came out and then he started becoming bigger. It seemed like day by day his body was becoming bigger, tall, blackish. It said it appeared like a burnt hill. At the same time, he was lustrous as a bright array of clouds. So a detailed description is given. Coppery eyes, his hair was like, melted copper, very, very, very fearful. And he seemed to be extremely powerful. His eyes were like the midday sun. And he was dancing and making very scary sounds. The whole earth was trembling. So seeing that very gigantic demon, practically everyone was starting to run away in fear. So because he was so fearful, and because he covered all the planetary systems by dint of his austerity, this particular demon was named as Vritra. Vritra means he who covers everything. So his power was such that he covered by his influence practically everything else. As soon as that demon manifested, Indra, along with the other soldiers, they tried to attack and strike him down with their own weapons, with their divyastras. But anything they would toss towards the demon, Vritra would just open his mouth and swallow it. No effect. It was like playthings for him, like small, like throwing a small feather towards him, just swallowing the pencil. Thoughts were really getting freaked out. They're wondering what to do. This demon is so powerful. So the demigods, when they realized this particular situation, they became very, very fearful and they started wondering what is it that we should do. And they realized the demigods, being devotees, mixed devotees, being devotees, whenever they are in such difficult situation, they always remember Lord Hari. Abhaya Charana Ravindare. Of course, those who are pure devotees, they always remember the Lord, no matter whether there is difficulty or no difficulty, with pure devotion, without any material expectation. But those who are mixed devotees, their intensity of devotion increases when they are in difficulty. And usually goes down. They may be still devotees, but their intensity is very low in other times, in good times. In bad times, their devotional intensity becomes very great. Nonetheless, I mean, the Lord is still appreciative of anybody who approaches. So they started worshipping Lord Narayana and offering beautiful, beautiful prayers. Now, something very interesting happened. It is said as Vritra was being born, before we get into the prayer section, significant verses in the remaining of this chapter are the prayers. Something very interesting happened. When Twasta was creating Vritra through the mantras, when he was uttering the mantra, Indra Shatru, that I want to create this being Vritra, who is an enemy of Indra. His whole idea was enemy of Indra means this Vritra will kill Indra. I am creating this being for this purpose. Somehow he mispronounced the words. And the way he mispronounced, the meaning of the words changed from Indra's enemy to one whose enemy is Indra. Yeah. So this is how destiny is. This is how the Lord arranges things through material nature. Ultimately, we cannot beat our destiny or the Lord's will. He thought he is creating somebody to kill Indra, but by his own misutterance, the final destiny of Vritra was already set to be killed by Indra rather than killing Indra. And Vritra knew this. Anyway, so this is background story. But immediately, as Vritra appeared, the Devatas were in great panic. Perhaps the Devatas did not know about this thing. It is not mentioned very clearly here. Because at one time in the battle, and we'll discuss this in the subsequent chapters, the Devatas were so overwhelmed. Indra was so overwhelmed. Indra, in fact, thought that he's finished. Anyway, we will go into that discussion when we come into that chapter. But with great devotion now, all the Devatas headed by Indra, they started glorifying and praying to Lord Narayana. Very beautiful prayers. Now, these prayers are very extensive and quite philosophical. So, I'm not going to go through all the verses. Essentially, these prayers, the Devatas glorify the transcendental position of the Supreme Lord. They're all conditioned, we are all bound. You are transcendental, you are the ultimate source of everything. We don't know you, we can't even know you. You are so great, we cannot even figure you out, but we know that you are in everyone's heart, and we can get fearlessness when we take shelter of you. You are the source of everything, material and spiritual. You are the shelter of everything. You are the super soul within everyone's heart. Without you, everything would be dead. And you are so great. You are so wonderful. Not only are you the source of everything, you are also the source of all happiness. He who somehow connects you and tastes even a drop of nectar of your glories, they become so happy that they cease to be excited about this material world. And such people eventually give up all material conditioning and exclusively take shelter of your lotus. It's very interesting. The Devatas are mentioning this, but they are not actually following this. Very interesting. Yeah? So, like that, sometimes we also speak so many wonderful things in glorification. So, it's okay. I mean, it's still good we speak, because by speaking repeatedly, one day we'll understand what we are speaking. Yeah? And then slowly, slowly, it will seep into our head. So sometimes we speak and pray much higher than what we are, but that's okay as long as we are repeating the words of Shastra, of great acharyas, great personalities. And Krishna likes this because that is the way by which we can come to higher consciousness. By offering prayers which represent the next level that is supposed to be our attainment. So they glorify the Lord in his various incarnations. Oh Lord, you are the Father of all the worlds. You came as Vaman, you came as Narasimha. You've always been helping us against the Daityas. You come as Vaman, Ram, Krishna, so many times. As fish you saved, as Hayagriva you saved, as Kurma you saved. You've done this so many times. Maybe now is one more time you should appear and save us again. Maybe it's a good time to take avatar. Because the Lord was having no intention to take avatar, but they suggested maybe this is also a very difficult situation. Maybe you should take an avatar. Of course, the Lord doesn't need consultation of the Devatas to take avatar. He knows when to take avatar, when not to. Because there are times when the Lord can manage the situation without taking avatar. Of course, the Lord can always manage without taking avatar. He chooses to take avatar for a higher purpose, to attract our hearts and displace pastimes. Of course, this situation did not warrant anything like this. God did not incarnate at this particular point as a distinct incarnation, but nonetheless, that was one of the. So this is, sometimes as devotees, when we pray to the Lord, we also give solutions to the Lord. Oh Lord, help me. Please do this. This is the best way to fix my problem. Yes, just do this and all my problems will disappear. And God is laughing behind the scenes. What he's saying. He doesn't know if I do this, his problem will become double. So unfortunately, so this is the difference between mixed devotees and pure devotees. Pure devotees are always surrendered. Mixed devotees, they pray, they have some devotion, but they also want to tell God how to fix their problem. Oh Lord, only if you give me so much money, I'll be fully dedicated to serving you. And Krishna is laughing. Ha ha. I know what will happen if I give you that much money. Ha ha. Krishna knows better, much better than us. What is good for us. Anyway, so nonetheless, and their glorification is technically correct. Whatever they say, the Devatas, they explain the transcendental nature of the Lord. They explain the glory of Lord's devotional service, of how the Lord protects. So the prayers are very, very wonderful and perfect, even though not necessarily that they are in full realization of that, nonetheless. So eventually their final submission is, oh Lord, oh Supreme Controller, annihilate this dangerous demon Vritrasura, Twasta's son. He's already swallowed all our weapons. He has covered Vritra, our influence and power and strength, and we are worried he will devour us. So we are surrendering to you. Please protect. So Shukdev Goswami says, when the Devatas offered prayers to the Lord in this way, sincerely, the Lord listened, very like a very loving parent. Whatever the devotees, even mixed devotees, they may babble, even though may not be with the full realization. The Lord, being a very loving parent, appreciates as long as the right sincerity is there, the right intention is there. The Lord was pleased. So the Lord, first of all, the Lord appeared actually, and he started speaking to the Devatas. It is said initially the Lord appeared within the hearts of the Devatas, and then suddenly he appeared in front of them, Lord Narayan. So this is one good thing about being the Devatas. So at least once in a while, in some situations, you can see Lord Narayan take his darshan. They all offered, dandavat obeisances to his lotus feet. The Lord speaks to the Devatas and says, oh, you have offered prayers with me with great knowledge. Whatever you describe about my transcendental nature, about my devotional, everything is. So I give you full marks for technical correctness, that you glorified me properly. And that's why I'm very pleased with you. A person who has this knowledge actually becomes liberated. And when they have this knowledge, they're able to remember me, my exalted position. And by that, because my exalted position is transcendental, eventually they can reach transcendental when they become purified by offering such prayers in full knowledge. And eventually this will lead to devotional service. So your attempt is good. I give you full marks for your attempt. He didn't say you have fully realized it, but what you have said is correct. Yes, and what you also said, Devatas, that nothing is difficult to attain for he who has received my favor. But also it is true. Now Krishna is, Lord Narayan is gently reminding the Devatas that they are not so advanced after all, even though they are giving very big advanced prayers. A pure devotee of mine, Lord Narayan says, whose mind is fixed on me without any deviation, actually doesn't ask anything from me except for devotional service. You ask me many wonderful things and I am pleased with you, but actually a pure devotee doesn't ask for anything. He who thinks that material assets, Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shri, to be everything or the goal of life, actually they are Kripana, they are misers. They do not actually understand what is the real need of the soul. Also, he who blesses such people with these kind of material benedictions, he must also be considered foolish. Which means the Lord is telling the Devatas, you are making wonderful spiritual prayers, but what you are asking for is not the right thing to ask for. For all those wonderful spiritual prayers, you are saying, protect me from this demon. Of course, the Lord has all intention of helping them, but He's trying to remind them that gently, you have to come to a higher level of consciousness, to a higher level. This is not the kind of prayers that a pure devotee. And he says, one who is actually experiencing devotional service, he will never ask anybody, pray like this, or to engage in fruitive activities to attain happiness. A true devotee is like an experienced doctor who never encourages his patient to eat food which will be dangerous for him, even if the patient wants that kind of a food. because he knows that that kind of food will only increase the disease of the patient. And that is why I, as the Supreme Lord, am very cautious what kind of blessings I give to my devotees, because sometimes they don't know what is good for them. They become excited and they tell me what I should do for them, but they don't know that what they are asking is not good for them. So how, as the doctor, I will just simply give them, because I am their well-wisher. I am like that physician. But don't worry, you have a problem. I will give you a suggestion. So now listen to my advice of how this problem should be fixed. Please don't expect me. I'm not going to come and take Sudarshan Chakra and cut off Vritra's head or take an incarnation. No, that's not the way how it's going to work. He doesn't say it, but that's what it means. So Lord Narayan, after having humbled the Devatas by showing them their actual position, he gives them the instruction. He says, "Oh Indra, I wish good for you. You want to protect yourself from this Vritrasura. So what you should do is, there is this great sage Dadichi. It's a very exalted sage, very accomplished in knowledge, vows, austerities. Is very, very. He has been performing such prayers and austerities that his body has become very, 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 very powerful. So go to him and approach him and request him to donate his body." So they become sad. Then the Devatas are very surprised. What is this that the Lord is asking? So this great saint Dadichi, he has understood spiritual science perfectly and also is an expert in ritualistic activities. He had given these ritualistic activities, Karma Kand, he had explained to the Ashwini Kumaras at one time. Ashwini Kumaras are the physicians of the Devatas. It is said he explained the transcendental knowledge to the Ashwini Kumaras through the mouth of a horse. And that is why those mantras are known as the Ashwashira. And after having obtained those mantras from Dadichi, the Ashwini Kumaras became liberated. They became Jivan Mukta. Now there is a story, it's not mentioned in the Bhagavad, but the story goes something like this, background story, that the Ashwini Kumaras approached Dadichi long back and they learned all kinds of ritualistic things from him. And then they also knew that Dadichi knows something higher than Karma Kanda. He has perfect transcendental knowledge, Brahma Vidya. They approached him and said, "Please instruct us in Brahma Vidya." So Dadichi wanted to instruct them, but as soon as Indra found out that the Ashwini Kumaras want to learn Brahma Vidya, Indra did not want his doctors to become too spiritual. So he comes to Dadichi upfront and tells him, "They come to you for Brahma Vidya, you will not instruct them because they are my doctors. I don't want them to. They're not Brahmanas. I don't want them to become tapasvis and get distracted from their job. You will not instruct them. If you instruct them, I'll chop off your head." So Ashwini Kumaras come to Dadichi and say, "Dadichi Maharaj, please instruct us in Brahma Vidya." He says, "Oh, Indra doesn't want this to happen. He'll be very upset if I instruct you. He has threatened me that he will chop off my head." So the Ashwini Kumaras were very determined to learn Brahma Vidya. So after some deliberation, the Ashwini Kumaras told Dadichi Maharaj, it said, "We are very accomplished in the science of medicine. So what we will do is, we will do an operation. We'll cut your head. We'll keep it on the side. We'll attach the head of a horse. And then through the head of the horse, Dadichi spoke the Brahma Vidya, the Ashwini Kumaras. After that knowledge was given, and that is what is known as Ashwashira. Indra became very upset. He came, he chopped off the head, which was the head of a horse. After that, the Ashwini Kumaras appeared again. They performed another surgery, put original head back. So that is the background. So all happens. So, those who are very excited about going to higher planets should know that, it's not always easy there. I don't think any of us will want all these kind of things. Chopped head, horse head, that just to learn transcendence. See, go so peacefully on Zoom we can discuss. Nobody is threatening me to chop off my head to, to share Brahma Vidya. You're actually at a good time in a good place. Anyway, so it is said, this is the history which is being given about Dadichi. Lord Narayan is explaining this about Dadichi. It's very powerful. And his body is like Vajra. It's extremely powerful. And you know why he is powerful? Not only because of his Brahmadnya, not only because of the austerities, but because Twasta gave the Narayan Kavash to Dadichi. And, sorry, other way. Dadichi was reciting Narayan Kavach and he became very, very powerful. And his bones became powerful because of the Narayan Kavacha. He gave the Narayan Kavacha to Twasta and Twasta gave the Narayan Kavacha to Vishwarupa and then Vishwarupa gave to. So that is the history of Narayan Kavacha. So Dadichi spent his lifetime chanting the Narayan Kavacha and that is why all the power and energy of the Narayan Kavacha related potencies of Vishnu were assimilated into his body, and his bones especially, they had become extremely, extremely powerful, being imbued by the power of Narayan Kavach. So do one thing, O Indra. Ashwini Kumaras are very dear students of Dadichi because of all the episode, the Ashwashira episode. So ask the Ashwini Kumaras to approach Dadichi and ask him for his body. He is so affectionate that he will give up his body to serve all the Devatas. Because Dadichi is very experienced in religious understanding, knows the essence of dharma. He will not hesitate. He's not attached to his body like you. In bracket, the Lord doesn't say that. Basically, he's saying, you want to protect your body from Vritra. If you want to protect, you have to take his body. Because from his body, once you get his body, his bones, Vishwakarma can make a very powerful weapon, known as the Vajra weapon. And only this Vajra weapon can kill Vritrasura because it is invested with my potency. And only when Vritrasura is killed with that Vajra weapon, only then it is possible for you to regain your strength, weapons, and wealth. And don't worry, O Indra. This is the only way out. And don't worry, actually Vritrasura will not harm you. Why? Because actually he is not envious of you. In bracket, Indra is envious of the demons. Demons are envious of Indra. But he is not. He seems like a demon. He's not envious. Actually, he's a devotee of mine. And he will never be envious. So, lot of hints Lord Narayan gives to Indra. But Indra is determined in his purpose. I want my kingdom back. Bas. Normally, what a great soul would think, a truly advanced person would think, why should I ask him to give up his body so that I can protect my body? That to a great sage. Correct? I mean, normally what we would have expected. Should have told Narayan, okay, if this is the only way, I don't want it, let him kill me, it's okay. How can I go to Dadichi and say to Dadichi, can you please die? I want to live. But that's what Narayan says. The greatness of Dadichi is not just for you individually, but because you're occupying the position of Indra, he will do it for a higher cause. He's not attached to his body. He knows it is my instruction and he will just give up in devotional service. So this reveals the greatness of Dadichi and it reveals the attached nature of Indra. So that was the instructions which Narayan used to. I'm not taking any incarnation. Don't expect me to kill Vritra. He doesn't say this, but net. He says, this is the only way out. To kill Vritra. Actually, Vritra is not envious of you, so you don't need to fear him. And we also know in the background that the whole prayer was in such a way that rather than Vritra killing Indra, Indra was destined to kill Vritra. But this is the way out. So quite interesting. And the story continues. So the chapter has ended, by the way. And the chapter ends with Lord Hari found Narayan instructing this to Indra of how he can overcome Vritra. So it's not easy, right? You see, sometimes even when one is in difficulties, even overcoming those difficulties can pose more difficulties. And nothing is free other than the Lord's causeless grace. So this is the nature of the material world. Padam padam yat vipadam. There is danger at every step. As they say, there's a problem, but to solve that problem, man does something, and that solution creates another problem. Then to fix that problem, we create another solution, and that solution creates another problem. So that is the nature of the complexity of material nature. Everything is mixed. Try to fix something, we break something. So the only way really out is to elevate oneself to a transcendental consciousness and eventually go beyond this world of dualities, beyond the three modes of material. Otherwise, this mixed results of happiness, distress under the three modes of material nature with continued birth, old age, disease, and death will never ever cease. It's quite interesting. As a side note, it's quite interesting. Devatas like Indra have seen Narayan, offered prayers to Narayan. Narayan has spoken to them. Yeah. But still, what we would have expected if somebody sees Narayan face to face, he gives up everything, he becomes pure devotee. Doesn't quite always happen like that. So ultimately, that's why, Prabhupada says, the Acharya, ultimately just seeing Krishna is not the biggest deal. Sometimes some people make a big deal about, I saw God, I want to see God, as if that is the final conclusion. The highest attainment is not seeing God. The highest attainment is to engage in the Lord's service with pure devotion. Doesn't matter whether the Lord is in front of us or totally absent. The connection, Jiver Swarupoi Krishner Nityadas. Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhokshaje Ahituki Apratihata Yatma Suprasidati. The supreme dharma for all living entities, for all times, in all situations, is to engage in unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service to the transcendental Lord. Because this kind of service is the only means to fully satisfy the self. Not just taking darshan, not just getting protection, not just getting, all this is okay. But without attaining that state of unmotivated, that is why the Lord tells Indra, no? Indirectly tells you making big prayers, but actually a person who really means these prayers will not ask for what you're asking at the end of the prayers. Not ask. So, but okay, never mind. You have approached me. You are devatas. It is important that the universal governance has to go properly. So let me try to see what I can do to help you. So these are the options. This is the path. If you want, you can pursue it. So that brings us to the end of this chapter. So opening up the floor. So this pastime is very, very interesting. This pastime is a conflict between two devotees. Indra, who is the devata and who is a mixed devotee, and Vritra, who is externally a demon, but who is actually a pure devotee. So Vritra has a background. We'll get into the background of Vritra as we progress through the Bhagavad. So who is Vritra? Why did he become a demon? How come he is a demon but still a pure devotee? All that story, background story, will come to in a short while. But this is a very interesting pastime. And those who are students of the Bhagavad want to understand, they are not just excited about this story. The excitement is about understanding the underlying lesson. But ultimately, what is it that is worth attaining? Is it at the end of this story, we want to learn Narayan Kavacha and gain opulence and live a wonderful life in this world, like Indra? Some of us may want or may get attracted to that, but that is not the final lesson here. The final lesson that we learn at the end of this story is Vritra remained in the material world. Vritra died and went back home, back to God. So what is it that is worth attaining? What is it that one should aspire for? What is the price for attaining? These are the important things, and these are the subtlemost aspects of Bhagavad Dharma, which we want to grasp. Much like the Devatas, we ourselves in our own hearts, we may be speaking big things, especially we as preachers who speak Gita class, Bhagavatam classes. Sometimes we feel, oh, I'm speaking such big things. But what is my own realization of these things? This is important for us, even while we are repeating the words of the great souls, to remain humble and to understand that we are only sharing the wisdom of the great souls. Our continuous prayer is that someday, by repeating these words again and again, we will actually become purified, will receive the blessings of the great souls because we are engaging in this service on their behalf. Gradually, we will come to the realization of what we are speaking. And suddenly, it will strike us one day. It has happened many times with me that after having spoken something for many years, suddenly, when the same thing came out from the mouth, suddenly it hit me so hard. So such a profound and deep point. I have been speaking and repeating this so many times. I never really understood anything. I have been just, intellectually understood. Intellectually, yes. To appreciate. And not that we may have fully appreciated it yet, but sometimes we get a deeper insight into that principle. Krishna allows us to understand as some purification happen, as some blessings come. Suddenly we realize, oh, statement is actually so profound. This point is actually so profound. There's such deep truth behind all that I have been speaking for last 20, 30, 40, or sometimes even for lifetimes before, some things even become 5% understood. But that is the process. Under the guidance of the great souls, we should continue to repeat this. The important thing is to not become proud, to always not forget our real position, that we are still conditioned souls. While we will be speaking big words, we are ourselves sadhakas who are trying to ourselves both share and realize. That way we can maintain a humble position and not falsely assume that we represent the state of consciousness from which such prayers actually emanate. One day, that is our aspiration, will actually come from the core of our heart. But until then, very humbly, should repeat the words of the great souls. Thank you very much. Yes, Prabhu's, yeah, Suraj.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, I was reading like there are three types of Shaktis of God: Chit Shakti, Maya Shakti, and Tatata Shakti. Can you tell that what is Chit Shakti and Tatata Shakti, Prabhu?
Chit Shakti is the spiritual potency. So spiritual, material, and the Jiva. Three Shaktis, right? Para, Apara, and Jiva.
Okay.
Correct? The Bhagavad Gita also describes that in the 7th chapter, right? Apareyamitastunyam prakatin vidhi me param. Jiva bhutam mahabaho yenam dharyate. There is the apara, which is the pancha mahabhut, and the eight energies. The earth, water, fire, air. Kham mano buddhi revacha ahankara ityam me bhinna prakriti ashtava. Bhinna prakriti is the apara prakriti. Then the jiva is the tatastha shakti. And the spiritual energy is sometimes known as the chit potency.
Okay. Yep. And Prabhu, the second small question. Prabhu,
Yeah.
in Bhagavatam, there is always reference is given to the water in the footprint of a calf, right? So what is that analogy, Prabhu? I'm not able to understand.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to cross over a big ocean, isn't it? You agree? To cross over.
Yeah.
It is also difficult to cross over a sea. It is also
Okay.
difficult to cross over a lake. It
Yeah.
is also difficult to cross over a pond. We are so small. It is sometimes even difficult to cross over a stream.
Yeah.
But what is the easiest possible body of water to cross over?
Mm.
The water which is occupied in the hoof print of a calf. It's so small, no? Print of a calf. Water will gather, right? We were just discussing. Even when there are ditches, they get filled up on earth. That is the blessing. So water, if it gathers in the hoof print of a calf, how big is it? Do you need any effort to cross over it?
No problem.
So the Bhagavatam says, for those who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, this fearful samsara, which is like an unlimited ocean, which is so difficult to cross over, becomes reduced in size to that of a water contained within the hoof print of a calf, so that the devotee can very easily cross over the samsara. Understand?
Yeah, I got it, Prabhu. Clear.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
What that means is only through devotional service one can cross over this material existence, and that too very, very easily. That is the point.
Yeah, it's clear, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare. Yes, Tarun?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have a question on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, Prakriti Purush Chetna, and shloka number 31 and 32. Prabhuji, this chapter is pretty confusing. And in the
Chapter is not confusing. We are confused.
yeah, right.
That is the
Yeah,
difference.
right.
Chapter is not confusing. We are confused. If you say chapter is confusing, that means we are saying, Krishna, you didn't do a good job giving a lecture.
No, I think we are confused to understand. You're
We are
right.
confused. Because we are confused, sometimes simple topics we don't understand. Yeah, no problem. We are all in the same boat. I'm not pointing fingers to you. I'm just saying that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead. Which verse you said?
31, Prabhu.
Okay.
Prabhu, I am just reading purport, तात्पर्य. मनुष्य जब मनुष्य देखता है कि विभिन्न जीवों के शरीर उस जीव की विभिन्न इच्छाओं के कारण उत्पन्न हुए हैं तथा वे आत्मा से किसी तरह संबद्ध नहीं हैं, तो वह वास्तव में देखता है कि देहात्म बुद्धि के कारण किसी को देवता, किसी को मनुष्य, कुत्ता, बिल्ली आदि रूप में देखता है। प्रभु, ये आत्मा, उसकी इच्छाएं तो आत्मा से ही लिंक है ना, मींस एवरीथिंग इज लिंक्ड विद द सोल, व्हाट थिंग, व्हाट wishes he has, then why it is not linked there?
No, Atma, consciousness comes from the Atma, but when the Atma misidentifies itself because of Ahankar, what is Ahankar? What is false ego? When the Atma misidentifies itself with the gross and subtle bodies because of a material Ahankar, it develops perverse desires to enjoy matter. It becomes forgetful of its real identity.
But wishes are associated to Atma only, right?
Yes, consciousness is Atma. Correct. For example, when we are sleeping, still us, but in the dream we see something. We see ourselves as something, we see our surroundings in some way, and we identify with that situation. It is still us only thinking, but the whole identification is wrong. You suddenly be seeing yourself as the CEO of the company. and going around in the company giving orders to everybody. But that may not be the reality.
True.
So when the soul misidentifies itself because of its, as soon as the living entity desires to enjoy independent of the Lord out of his mercy places the jiva into the material energy, which allows the jiva to assume an identity of an enjoyer to the association of the material nature. So it develops an ahankar. So when influenced by that ahankar, the living entity develops different kinds of desires, thinking that those desires will make me happy because his whole identity has now changed. You understand what I'm saying? If instead of thinking I'm the soul, you start thinking you're the body, then your whole definition of what will make me happy changes immediately. From the happiness of the soul to the happiness of the body. So what this verse is saying is that when a person becomes restored to Brahman conception, the spiritual realization, he realizes that, Arey Baba, all these desires that I had are coming because of this false association. These are all coming from the body and the mind. These are not my desires. These are not the desires of my true self. The desires of my true self is just to love and serve the Supreme Personality of God.
Okay.
So we will reach that realization. Guna guneshu vartanta iti matvana sajjate. Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, that he realizes that the body is engaged with the modes and there is an interaction between the body and material nature, and I am aloof. The realization of the soul being aloof is the beginning of Brahman realization. Because that is when one realizes, Arey Baba, all this while I was thinking, I am this, but I am not this, I am Brahman. I am transcendental. These are not my real desires, these are my distorted desires, which have come up because of my wrong identification. It's like when we wake up from a dream, we realize, Arey Baba, I was not the person I was in the dream, I am this person. But we were only desiring in the dream something based on a false assumed identity. The same when we wake up, we disassociate ourselves with the dream and we realize all those desires and thinking was all imagination. That I am really this. Understand?
Clear. That helps from me. I think this is the reason Prabhupada ji written at the last, it needs to be so. Actually, yeah, मनुष्य को चाहिए कि गुरु की सहायता से इस अध्याय का परिणति समझ ले.
Yeah, we are all hearing from Prabhupada and the great souls.
Yeah.
So that's why, like what I mentioned earlier, no? The more we practice Krishna consciousness, the more we purify ourselves, the more these theoretical ideas will be realized. What now you're intellectually understanding, you will actually be able to see what Krishna is speaking. Understand what I'm saying? Huh? You will actually be able to see. And when you will actually be able to see, you'll say, Hare Baba, it was so simple. It was actually so, now I understand. So all these statements are actually very, very profound. And the way we can realize this is by continuing in the process of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master and in the association of devotees, and we do sadhana 100%. In due course, all these things are all are perfectly true. And gradually they will be seen as factually true through experience. We will develop the vision to actually see what these examples are. Even this whole discussion about Goshpati Kritaha. Bhagavatam says Goshpati Krita means entire material existence becomes like the water contained in the hoof print of a calf. This is the realization of a person who has attained devotional service. Because initially he was thinking, just can't surmount this ocean of materialization. He sees it as an unlimited ocean. But after reaching the point of pure devotion, he's saying, what is there? When you are at that level, you see so clearly, I can just walk over it. It's nothing. It cannot disturb me. It is not a challenge for me anymore. I can just walk over it just as I walk over a puddle. So that realization we don't have because we don't have that attainment. But when we achieve that attainment, we will have the same vision. But for now, we have to accept it theoretically. So the point now is that we don't have to become hopeless that the ocean is unlimited. Prabhupada says in one of these purports, he says that one cannot cross the ocean of material existence by holding the tail of a dog. Just because a dog can swim doesn't mean that one can cross over the ocean by holding the tail of a dog. What that means is people who are not actually transcendental, such leaders who are like dogs, cannot hope that they will take us across the ocean of material existence. Nowadays, there are many leaders, even in politics or otherwise, who are actually misleading people, who are making them atheistic, making them opposed to Ram, making them opposed to Krishna, making them opposed to Dharma. They are like dogs who are trying to swim in the ocean, cannot hold their tail and get across. We have to take shelter of those who are true representatives of Ram, true representatives of Krishna. The spiritual masters and the Raja Rishis can set the proper path for us by following which we can cross over the ocean of material existence. Correct?
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you. Santanam Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. My question, Indra did not recited Narayana Kavach when he saw Vritrasura. Why they are praying to Lord Hari?
That is not particularly explained. I think they just became very terrified. So if as the story progresses, in fact, Vritrasura himself, and we will come to those verses, Vritrasura himself tells Indra, why are you so scared? You already have blessings of Narayan. You are already destined to kill me. Why are you so scared, be feeling so hopeless? But it happens sometimes, with us also as sadhakas. We say, if you take shelter of Krishna, you'll be protected. There is no need to worry. But still we are so scared. So that is the nature of material attachment. Scared, oh, what will happen to me? This will happen. And we are all like that. To different levels. Correct? It is said even Jesus Christ on the cross, at one point, he said, oh Lord, have you abandoned me? Sometimes these kind of doubts come. Of course, he then regained his faith again. For a moment, he became bewildered. So, yeah. So sometimes, when one is faced with huge opposition or what seems like huge opposition, sometimes, the doubt will come, will I really be taken care? Will I really? Even when Narsingadev and Hiranyakashipu were fighting, sometimes the devatas were thinking, because sometimes the Lord was playing with Hiranyakashipu. It seemed as if Hiranyakashipu is overwhelming the Lord. He was just playing with him. And the devatas would suddenly become scared. So a pure devotee like Prahlad is, always fearless because he knows the real transcendental nature. He's fully taken shelter. Abhaya Charanaravindra. So true fearlessness is only when we attain that kind of a situation. Otherwise, even our faith, our shelter is mixed. And we will go through doubts and confidence cycles up and down like a wave. When things are working well, oh, Krishna's grace is there. When things are according to us not working well, oh, Krishna has abandoned me. Where is Krishna? Actually, Krishna's grace is, for those who are sincere, is actually always there. We are not able to always understand and appreciate. If you read the purports across this chapter, also Prabhupada continuously says a pure devotee is never bothered by all these ups and downs. A pure devotee is always Maro bhi rakho bhi jo ichha tomar. To protect me, it's okay. You want to kill me, it's also okay. Ideally, what we would have expected from Indra when he saw Narayan. Oh Lord, what is your desire? You want to protect me or you want me to die? You decide. Why should I go and ask Dadichi to give up his life? Right?
Durva was asking.
Yeah. Tell me what will please you? Will it please you that I gain my kingdom back and I continue to rule as the head of the Devatas? Is that what is your desire? Or you think that in the current situation, the right thing for me and what is good for me is that I get killed by Vritra? You please tell me, I will do accordingly. Correct? Ideally, Indra should have approached like that. He did not, right? Yeah. So even when blessed, there are moments of weakness, there are moments of doubt. Until the point a person becomes a perfect devotee, all these ups and downs will continue. So it's not mentioned very clearly whether he recited Narayan Kavach at that point in time, yes or no. It's not very mentioned. So I don't want to say yes or no either. But what is true is he did become fearful. Right? Yeah.
I have
Okay.
one more.
Anything else?
The material existence is like ocean, and once we follow the devotional service, it is becoming into a water in the cup. It is like a puddle water. So sometimes when we do some activity, we feel it is a very challenging activity. When we repeatedly doing the same activity, then we started feeling like it is like becoming into a simple activity. For example, I can say arranging a kirtan or something at our place. At the initial days, I used to feel like a big challenge activity. But when I started repeatedly doing that, then it has become like a common, simple activity. I'm not sure whether by doing some activity repeatedly at the family or workplace, uh, when we are repeatedly doing, the things are looking like a simple one. Maybe for the first timer it may looks like a ocean. uh, is my understanding how we connect with the spiritual devotional service here.
So as we practice devotional service, we nourish ourselves and we increase in spiritual strength. So as we increase in spiritual strength, those activities which seemed challenging at first to do become more easily accomplished. So it's a continuous process. But here we are talking about the ultimate step of crossing over material existence. So we are taking right now small steps. Those small steps are not adequate to immediately cross over material existence. It's a progress. But that ultimate crossing over is when we take full shelter. So I'll read this verse from the Bhagavad where this is mentioned. This 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 30. Tvaya ambujaksha akhila sattvadhamni samadhina veshita chetasaike tvat padapotena mahatkritena vanti govatsa padam vabdhim. O lotus-eyed Lord, by concentrating one's meditation on your lotus feet, which are the reservoir of all existence, and by accepting those lotus feet as the boat by which to cross the ocean of nescience, one follows in the footsteps of the Mahajanas. And by this simple process, the ocean of nescience, one can cross as easily as one steps over the hoofprint of a calf. And there are many verses like this. This is just one example. Hoofprint of a calf example is very common in the scriptures. So when one follows, when one has actually taken real shelter, then this crossing over becomes this simple. But until that point, yes, I mean, the more we take shelter, the more we get strength, the easier it becomes to render devotional service. So this is one way of how we can see we are progressing. We can chant more, we can listen longer, we have more interest in reading, hearing. Detachment from matter, attachment to Krishna. When we see both increasing, that means we are increasing in spiritual strength, we are increasing in spiritual taste, and that means we are making more progress. Our ultimate objective is to be firmly fixed in indifference to matter and full attachment to Krishna. That is the stage of perfection where we can, one step, cross over the ocean of material existence. That's not a small attainment. But no problem, even if we don't reach that level, if we are fully taking shelter with our best effort, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham aham samuddarta mrityu samsara vartmani bhavamina chirat partha mayaveshta chetasam. Those who are diligently following, taking shelter of me, following the process of devotional service, I become the swift deliverer from the ocean of material existence. Even though we can't cross over, Krishna can come and pull us out of the ocean. The Guru can pull us out of the ocean. So the most important thing is we have to, with great sincerity and endeavor, apply ourselves to take shelter. Whether we in this lifetimes reach the state where we can just walk over the ocean of material existence, that's not a small attainment. It's a very high thing. Yeah? But still there is hope. Because Krishna is very liberal. If you take one step, Krishna will think, oh, how much this devotee has done. Oh, so much. So Krishna, we find reasons to find fault with others. Krishna finds excuses to bring us back. So, since Krishna is so liberal, Krishna is very liberal. Of course, we should not assume his liberalness and dilute our effort, because even our most intense effort is diluted by the actual standards which are required for perfection. So, our perfection is to do our best. We should not become frustrated by, oh, this great soul does so much, I can't do that. It's okay. He is Hanuman, we are a squirrel. It's okay. Ram is pleased with both. He's not comparing. The only question we have to ask is, am I doing my best? Am I putting in my best effort? Am I having the right motivation? Am I making the right efforts not get entangled? Am I making the right efforts not to be offensive and critical of devotees and others, and trying to follow principles sincerely? If that is there, then actually we are perfectly situated. Because the reality is, getting out of material existence is not something that we can demand. Ultimately, Krishna has to pull us up. You understand what I'm saying? This walking over material existence is the job of perfected souls, not the job of sadhakas. I'm not expecting anything like this. I don't think I'll ever reach a state where I can walk over the ocean of material existence. I will just continue to struggle and swim and remain afloat and just hope I'll be pulled out. I don't have any more aspiration than this. Personally, I'm not saying you all cannot achieve it. I'm just talking about my own assessment of myself. That's okay. I'm not here to be a hero. I will take one step and I will cross the ocean. I don't think it is in my capacity. Okay? Anything else?
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good.
Thank you. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta ki. Thank you. So next class we will discuss Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay? Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sapna ji, Archana ji, Sneha ji,
Hare Krishna,
Sridhar
Prabhuji.
ji, Pooja ji, Sridevi Mata ji, Hare Krishna, Vileka Mata ji, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Sachi Prema Mata ji, Anand Sundari Mata ji. Thank you, Charan Lakshmi Mata ji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Hare.